That's what we do. We help people.
This is Mosaik, live from the Freak Sanctum, and welcome to part 2 of Leverage, the Art of the Con. For those who are new to the Vault, this is a series where I take in-depth looks at the TV shows that are most precious to me. As you probably guessed, we'll be taking a look at Leverage Season 2. If you haven't seen the series before, the entire show is available on Amazon Prime, so I highly recommend you watch that first, as there will be spoilers moving forward. I also highly recommend watching my video on Leverage Season 1, if you haven't watched that as well. With that said, let's go steal a good time. Season 2 opens 6 months after the first season, with a newly sober Nate having moved back to his childhood home of Boston. After walking out on a job interview, he ends up saving the life of a girl and her father, but is trying to resist the urge to pursue further. Having been invited to a local performance by Sophie, he reunites with the rest of the team, having gone their separate ways after taking down Blackpool. The team has tried to resume their regular lives, but find that they are all miserable.
You took the world's best criminals.
Hitter, hacker, grifter, thief. You took us and you broke us.
Realizing how much they miss being together and working as a team, they convince Nate to rejoin them and help not only that girl and her dad, but plenty more clients with nowhere else to go. But since the old offices had a kinda problem, they must now work out of Nate's apartment, taking clients at the bar downstairs. Sophie, after a brief relationship with a random civilian, starts to have a crisis of self, and after an attempt on her life, leaves the team to try to figure out who she is beyond Sophie Devereaux. Her departure has a serious effect on the team, especially Nate, who starts to make more and more reckless decisions with the team, putting them all in more and more danger. This season feels like they got to take off the training wheels and really let loose. The cons are usually bigger and more elaborate. The characters that the crew get to play on cons wackier and more over the top, and the writing is even more clever and funnier than before. Last season's story arc was downplayed, keeping things episodic until the season finale, which tied everything together. This season functions similarly, but the character arcs of the show are much more prominent and evenly paced over the course of the season. This is probably the best that character arcs would get throughout the whole show, and while I wish that other seasons would have tried things on this level, they were never truly hindered by not having them. The theme of this season is family, and once again that theme is permeated throughout. Whereas the crew felt a lot like co-workers in the previous season, here there is a lot more of the crew getting moments to just interact and show how close they can be, further enforcing the types of relationships they have and providing depth to them. Each of the crew gets bits and pieces that offer some development, so we'll get to those before digging into the proper arcs. I also forgot to mention 2 semi-important characters from the last season, Special Agents Taggart and McSweet, 2 FBI agents who make regular appearances throughout the show.
Do you have any idea what Just go with it.
They are charming, bumbling characters who usually provide a laugh while on screen and end up playing key roles, with a running gag being the crew inadvertently helping them advance their careers at the FBI. Another key character that we should talk about is Lieutenant Patrick Bonanno. He's a Boston cop that Nate meets in the first episode of this season, and who makes appearances throughout the rest of the season and in subsequent seasons too. He's basically the team's go-to cop while they're in Boston when they need to call somebody to get the bad guys. And I'd also be remiss not mentioning his actor Robert Blanche, who passed away a few years ago. Bonanno didn't have a lot to him, but he was just a good stand-up guy, and that's really all he needed to be. Now, to the crew. Filling a baby sister role of sorts, Parker is shown to have a sort of childlike innocence. They frequently play this up for comedy, like Parker having absolutely no qualms about getting naked in front of her closest friends, but it also continues to be her greatest source of vulnerability. I forgot to mention this last time, but Parker was also confirmed to have been written to have a mild form of Asperger's syndrome. Like yet another one of my favorite characters. And another. Either way, it feels like Beth Riesgraf really got more comfortable with the role. There's an excellent moment where we find out that Parker has a little brother who died in a car accident, something that she never told anyone about before. After this revelation, she flees back to Nate's apartment, where the rest of the crew console her, Elliot even offering to kill the Mark when she suggests it would make her feel better. Speaking of, Elliot, by contrast to Parker's innocence, continues to act as the emo big brother. And while he remains the most mysterious of everyone barring Sophie, the show does use an episode or two to imply that Elliot was most likely brought up in a rural, Midwestern small town. In the tap-out job, he seems to truly relate to the plight of the local citizens.
The farms are drying up. The only stores are bail bondsmen's and pawn shops, and there's nothing they can do about it. So yeah, they get in the ring, and try not to let it all suffocate them.
And being somebody who grew up in a small town, he's certainly not wrong. We also see much more of Elliot acting as a guardian, particularly of children, from his protectiveness of Parker to an entire subplot about a random boy being abused by his asshole father. Elliot is the silent guardian who everyone underestimates until it's already too late.
That's kind of the point.
Hardison does not really have any development this season. But he's the Hardison we know and love, so I'm not exactly disappointed. His cockiness still gets the team in trouble, and his comedic timing is impeccable, with some of the most quotable lines coming from this season.
Led you to the warehouse? I had 2 cell phones in 2 minutes. Do you know who else can do what I do? CIA, MI6, and me.
Excuse me for interrupting prom night with my annoying felony burglary.
You can do that?
Oh, you'd be surprised at what I can do.
I got you to the warehouse. Go find someone to punch.
Another aspect that we do get to see more of is his tendency to overdo things to the point that he gets in his own way. All of these things combined probably come together best in the Iceman job. With Sophie having left the team, Hardison takes up the mantle of acting as the group's grifter for an episode, and immediately screws things up by overplaying his cover and getting himself captured, with the rest of the team having to bail him out. Suffice to say, things certainly got hairy before a new character was introduced to pick up the slack, but we'll get to her. Now, it's time we moved on to the real meaty stuff. As stated earlier, Sophie begins the team with a new boyfriend, who promptly dumps her in episode 4 due to her reluctance to open up to him. In his defense, she is going by an alias that Hardison made for her. In her defense, I doubt he would be comfortable with a realistic, "How was your day at work?" conversation. Sophie starts to have a bit of a crisis about her identity, which is not great for a grifter. You see, when Soph creates a character, it's more than just a name and an attitude. She creates entire histories and backgrounds. These aliases are truly a part of her. So, when an attempt on her life ends with Sophie faking her death, it has a profound effect on her. She even changes the name on her tombstone from her alias to the very thing we've been calling her since the show began.
The closest thing I've ever had to a real friend, and I've never heard you say my real name.
It's at this point that she officially leaves for most of the remainder of the season. She makes small appearances through video chat with bad green screen when the crew needs guidance, and it helps to confirm the mother figure role of her character. Sophie's arc here is easily one of the best in the show, even if it ends a bit too abruptly, but I understand why. Sophie's actor, Gina Bellman, became pregnant during production and as such went on maternity leave for the latter half. The writers had always planned for a storyline like this for Sophie, but they were pressured to incorporate it early due to Bellman's pregnancy. They handled it about as well as they could, and it was very well paired with... Nate is in a weird place when we pick back up with him at first. Sober and finally moving past his son's death, he has returned to his old stomping grounds in Boston, living in a loft above a family friend's bar. And not just a bar, but a bar that used to be frequented by cops, thieves, and gangsters alike. But he is clearly unable to simply move on from his old life. Nate has a couple of arcs this season, with the first being about self-acceptance, continued from last season.
Yeah, because you're not a thief.
When the team first gathers again, he insists that he does not want to get involved, but anyone with half a brain can clearly tell he's jumping at the chance. Even after officially rejoining the crew, he stands firm that he is not a criminal, despite, committing an obscene number of crimes every episode. And it's clear that he is finding the fulfillment in his life that he would have lacked getting another regular job. He pours himself into his work, and the crew is happy to have him. And then Sophie leaves, and Nate starts to get very reckless as things go on, taking risks with the team that he clearly would not have done otherwise. And it only gets worse in the bottle job, which sees Nate unfortunately positioned into drinking again in a con the team pulls to save McCrory's pub from an Irish loan shark. From here, things just keep getting worse and worse, culminating naturally at the end of the season. But we'll get to that. For now, it's about time we introduce the character who would go on to be a fan favorite. Tara, played by the lovely Star Trek alum Jerry Ryan, is a grifter colleague of Sophie's who fills in for Sophie during her absence. Tara is a very different kind of grifter, less classy and sophisticated like Sophie, and more playful and laissez-faire. In turn, her style on the grift is different, being much more inclined to use her feminine wiles on a mark, but being no less skilled or savvy. It's hinted that she has government training, mentioning things like Quantico and having skills in combat and code breaking. She also is in it entirely for the money.
Hey, I'm not a candy striper. This is my job.
This, along with introducing herself by grifting the team for an entire job, leads to her having to slowly gain the team's trust, which she gradually does over the course of the season. I would have loved to see more of her character in the show, as I do feel like 6 episodes is just not enough with her as a character, with 1 introducing her and the last 2 being the 2-part finale. But for what we got, she was an excellent addition to the cast, and I hope she comes back in the revival, even if just for a guest spot.
Let's go.
Some highlight cons this season include the Tap Out Job, excellent Elliot episode that really sells his silent guardian persona, the Fairy Godparents Job, an unusual episode that manages to be super fun and present a more vulnerable side of Sophie than we've seen before, the 2 Live Crew Job, your typical same versus same with some memorable character interactions, the Lost Air Job, first appearance of Tara Cole and with one of the best twist endings in the whole series, the Bottle Job, incredible bottle episode that acts as the turning point before the season finale, and the Psychic Job. Rest in peace, Luke Perry. But once again, the 2-part finale outdoes the rest of an already strong season. We open on Lieutenant Bonanno conducting a secret meeting on his day off, only to be double-crossed and shot up. Nate, put in a blinding rage, decides that the team will take up his case, bringing down a corrupt mayor. They rope him into a con to sell him a baseball stadium on the docks, but the crew increasingly finds things that just don't seem to add up. They try to get Nate to see reason, but he brushes it off to everyone's chagrin. Right as they're about to seal the deal, they find out too late that their mark is in bed with a big-time gun runner who actually ordered the hit on Bonanno. On top of that, Culpepper the mayor is actually a snitch for the FBI, who promptly surrounds the building. The team barely escapes, blowing up Hardison's van, Lucille in the process.
Get in!
No.
Hardison!
No, you ignored us. You screwed up. And you killed Lucille.
And if that wasn't bad enough,
James Sterling. Interpol. Just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it?
Oh, shit. Part 2 picks up with the crew on the run from the state police, the FBI, and Interpol, including Sterling, who was promoted due to the events of a previous episode. They take refuge in the hotel that the FBI is staying at, and realize that Tony Kajic has been using the docks to smuggle his merchandise, and kinda forcing Culpepper to be a snitch to cover their tracks. The crew finally takes some time to tell Nate to get his effing crap together.
Be Nathan Ford. Be the person we came back for.
Fully prepared to be on the run for the rest of their lives, the crew kidnaps the mayor back and prepares to take down Kajic. But Tara goes off on her own to set up her own meeting with him. Nate heads back to his apartment to pick something back up, only to be ambushed by Sterling. Sterling, sent out here to catch Kajic anyway, makes a deal with Nate. Help take down Kajic and Nate goes free. But the crew goes down.
You're not a thief.
Nate seemingly agrees and goes with Elliot to meet Kajic. Hardison, watching Culpepper, discovers Tara's duplicity and warns Parker, who nearly kills her. Culpepper uses this opportunity to warn Kajic, who promptly turns on Nate and prepares to shoot him, only to be stopped by...
No, Tony, this won't do at all, will it?
Sophie is back. Tara having been acting as a warning system should Nate have gotten out of control. This provides just enough time for Elliot to fight off all 13 armed guards on the boat and bust Nate out. With an escaped Culpepper and Kajic locked up on the boat, Tara departs as Sterling and the FBI arrive and prepare to arrest everyone. But Nate has one final trick up his sleeve. Tara and Parker having destroyed the evidence against Kajic in the FBI office, Nate offers himself up as a witness in exchange for the team's freedom. Having been shot during the encounter with Kajic, Nate sinks to the floor and proudly proclaims,
"My name's Nate Ford, and I am a thief."
Overall, Season 2 is an incredibly strong follow-up, even if I prefer Season 1 by the slightest bit. Plenty of strong episodes with more ambitious writing, the characters are better realized and the actors more comfortable in their roles. Everyone just seems to be having more fun. But a few episodes, while strong, weren't quite as memorable as last season. I felt like the finale was somewhat weaker than the last one, and the season could have benefited from an extra episode, for Tara's sake. But some of my favorite moments and episodes come from this season, and I'm more than happy to rewatch it anytime again and again. Now, I want to put it to you guys. Would you prefer that I cover Season 3 of Leverage next, or cover the first season of another show in the vault? Tell me down below which video you want to see next. I hope this series encouraged you to check out Leverage. If so, leave what you thought of the show down below. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video and want to see more. As always, this is the Freak Sanctum, and this is Mosaik signing off.